I gave you my first rose, and I'm standing here giving you my last rose. Brian, will you accept this rose?
1000%. I love you, and I will accept that rose.
I love you too.
People want to talk to me all the time, especially with the book coming out. You and Brian, or how things are going, and things are great with me and Brian, but they could be better. Can I just be honest about that? They could be better. And we're not struggling. We're not having a problem. Please don't create a headline about that. It's just, we could be better, and I want to be better.
Did you know that Rachel Lindsay has an audiobook that she narrated herself? Did you also know that you could listen to it for free? Yeah, you thought this was going to be an annoying ad poppin'. No, it's a come up. So let's get to it. Audible is a leading provider of spoken word entertainment all in one place. They have the largest selection of audiobooks with their newest plan, Audible Plus. You get full access to their Popular Plus catalog. In addition to your audiobook credit, you get unlimited access to original entertainment and podcasts, guided fitness, meditation, and sleep tracks. With everything that you love and could ever hope to listen to all in one app, Audible is sure to become your playlist for life. And if you have yet to dive into Audible, you might just be in luck, because you can actually sign up right now and get a 30-day free trial, which gets you 1 Audible credit to use for the entire month. Use that on any title of your choosing. Could be Rachel Lindsay's Miss Me With That. Could be my book, The Game of Desire, or anything else under the sun. Furthermore, you get access to the Audible Plus catalog, and things you put in your Audible library are yours to keep, even if you choose not to stay on and get a membership. I've been a member now for 4 years, so I see the perks, and maybe after your 30-day trial, you'll see them too. Go to audible.com/shanboody. Again, that's just audible.com/shanboody. The link is in the info box. Or if you're in the US and you prefer to text, again, that's shanboody to phone number 500-500. And that's how you get started. It's really that easy.
What's up?
It's good to see you.
Right?
It's so good to see you.
This is why I forced this to be in person, even though it's irresponsible given the times. But I was like, I so selfishly enjoy our time together so much.
I do too. And you did not force it. Okay, she didn't force it. Because I like the energy. And it's, one, is selfishly just to see each other again. But two, like, we can vibe off one another.
Let me just get this question out the way. I know I said I was getting on focus.
What's the question?
Because I just finished watching the Bachelorette season with Michelle. Yes. When was the first time you and Brian had sex?
Fantasy suites.
Yeah?
Yeah. Fantasy suites.
Is everybody fucking in the fantasy suites?
You're a fool if you're not.
Okay.
You got to test out the equipment.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. You are spending, it's 9 weeks before you get to the fantasy suite. So think you're like kissing these men, you're going on these magical dates, you haven't had sex in 9 weeks. You are ready. Like, by the time you get in there, you're like, you just want to rip each other's clothes off. But is it back to back? There's a day in between.
That's fun.
I'm so lucky that I'm on this podcast. It is fun and it's liberating, and I think there's power in being able to say, like, this is what I want, this is what I want to do. You get in the suite, there's like a bowl of condoms, maybe some other little toys and goodies as well.
I love how they really do honor that it's private.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows what happens in the fantasy suite. There's like the next day you guys are topless in bed. And you can insinuate whatever you want. That's a massage, honey.
Yeah. No, it could really be anything. You see the door close, and then the next day, like, you're extremely happy. So, like, you kind of know what went down. But also the conversation is so good because they strip the lights, they take all the mics down, and it's just you and that person for like 12 hours.
What was fantasy suite sex like?
Well, it happened more than once. I'm talking about with Brian.
Okay.
And it was... I remember Brian was he's going to kill me for saying this. I don't even think I've never talked about it in detail, so let's go. Brian was ready to go the moment we were left alone. Like, he jumped me. And I remember I pushed him back and I was like, no, I have so many questions I want to ask you. And I pull out this legal pad and I had all these questions from my family, because he had met my family at that point. So there were some issues that they wanted answered. And so I was like, okay, I want to ask these questions that I had, just general questions like credit score and stuff like that. And like, how do you vote and your religion, all that. And he was like, okay, that's enough with the questions. I remember he snatched the thing out of me, and not in a disrespectful way. It was just like, we both want this. And then all bets were off. It was absolutely amazing. You know how, okay, I'm digressing a bit. I have a 3-time rule. It's not always magical the first time, right? And so I'll excuse that. And the second time, maybe we're finding our rhythm. If by the third time it's not great, we got to go. Like if I really like you and I want it to be good. First time with Brian was exceptional.
But really and true, like you said, you had 9 weeks of collecting information about each other. So he already knew a lot about you intimately.
Not sexually, though.
But I would imagine that would, one, allow for you to be more comfortable asking questions, and two, just have a general sense of like, do you like aggressive? Do you want to be dominated?
We can talk about that.
Oh, interesting.
Nothing.
He just guessed it.
And I think we were also afraid to, because you aren't alone prior to that time. And so he isn't going to assume that he's making it to the fantasy suite. So it probably would have been more on me to have that conversation. But when you detour from talking about your feelings and maybe the other men, the producers are going to say to you, let's get back on track. Save those questions for later. So I never really thought about that until you said it. We never got to talk about the way we like to be sexed.
So do you think that the culture that was set within the dynamic of the production continued on afterwards? So I want to kind of circle back to what you said about sex, where talking about your sexual wants, needs, desires, it wasn't like the producer's desire. That was like, that's not what we're talking about right now. We need you to talk about this date with this dude, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
So because that wasn't encouraged, do you feel like it was more difficult to circle back once you were out of that environment to say, okay, let's reset our sexual relationship, even though it seemed like it went off with a bang or several bangs that night?
It did go off with several bangs. We never reset. We never thought about it. And I think maybe that's where it took me a long time to develop and be comfortable about talking about things sexually, just because of how I was raised. And so for me, there was a lot of shame in talking about it publicly. So we never had that conversation. And we were in sync from the beginning, that we kind of just knew what the other one liked. And yeah, it worked out. Also, it was new, it was fresh, like you're just so horny for each other.
Yes.
I just think that controls it too. But it's interesting you say that, because now as we're in real life and the honeymoon phase is over, we didn't have those conversations. And so like the newness wears off. And maybe if we had established that, maybe we would be, I guess, more understanding of what the other person needs rather than just doing what I want or what he wants.
Yeah, I would say that there's a catch-22 with having that immediate chemistry. The beautifulness is that you just get this sense of like, wow, and the connection that you share. And then also too, people always are going to ask about the first time. You get to tell this amazing story about like, oh my God, it was incredible the first night. Da-da-da-da. Nobody wants to tell the story of like, so he missed.
It was nothing like that.
Called his mom. It was awkward, but what's great sometimes about those rough starts is it sets the tone right away to, we got to work on this.
Yeah.
We got to talk about this. We have to reconfigure this. And as a result of that, you move forward with the energy that it's okay to course correct.
Yeah.
So when you start off great, now starting to, because as you like you said, either one, it's the difference and changes in relationship naturally over time. Two, it could be your body. Three, your kinks and things could evolve. It can become more difficult to bring up and course correct because you're like, this person feels like we just get each other. And if I tell them that we're not getting each other right now, how is that going to make them feel?
Yeah. No, you know what's interesting? I just realized too, Brian probably felt the pressure to really perform because there were still 2 other men left. So he probably was like, I got to give everything I've got. I got to show out so she has no questions. And he did. And I didn't. I had no questions.
Yeah. You go, boy. All right. So the topic we're talking about today, which I am so in love with, is, let me start with my quote actually.
Oh, yes. I love a good
my
quote.
quote. Rachel just had an X factor. She was a triple threat. Brains, beauty, personality, great sense of humor. Brian, that's 4. That's fine though. Everything on paper was top notch. She keeps me on my toes. She challenges me to be a better man. Triple threat, quadruple threat, all the things, making him a better person. And yet still, societally, you're made to believe that's not enough.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. That was, Brian said that the first night we met on The Bachelorette. You're saying societally that's not enough for me or for?
No, that the idea that you can still be an incredible partner.
Yes.
Beautiful, successful, push your partner, and you're expected to also be a porn star and a magical lover at the end of it. That there's this mounting expectation that even though you're so much, it's still not enough.
Yeah. And then there's this expectation that comes with that because you're great at certain things or many things, that you're great at everything, or because you're so strong in this, that you're strong in absolutely everything. And I think that there's this huge misconception, which, for example, conversations Brian and I never had from the beginning, which honestly, I don't even know if we've, in therapy before marriage, we talked a little bit about sex.
Yeah.
I'm all about therapy.
Good job. Beautiful story.
We definitely talked about sex during that, but I think there's a big misconception with me because I am very dominant and I'm strong and I'm opinionated and I like to control a lot. I am not like that in the bedroom. Wait a minute. Sorry, something just totally came to me. I took one of your tests. Brian had me take it. What test did you have Brian take?
Was it sexual turn on triggers?
It wasn't triggers. It was like kind of like maybe like who you are in the bedroom, what person you.
I feel like it would probably be that, like, are you the cat and mouse? Do you get turned on visually? Do you need environmental?
It was that. It was
Yes.
it was the environmental thing, because whatever it was, he was shocked, and I can't remember what my results were. He was shocked that it was that, and we were definitely total opposite. But I'm going all over the place. But the point is that I am not that way in the bedroom. I have to control so much in my life that when it comes to the bedroom, I like to be controlled. I like to be a little bit more submissive, and I like for you to take charge. That's something that we learned later in our relationship, and I think he assumed that about me just because that's how I am in every other aspect of my life.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing too. What I love that what you brought up is that as a Black woman in particular, there is so much responsibility that you are naturally expected to take on. And as a wife, there's so much responsibility you're naturally expected to take on that maybe this is one particular area that you don't really want the burden, the pressure.
I don't. And it doesn't mean that I don't want it. And I think that's something sometimes too. It's like if I'm not being that dominant, it makes him feel like that's not what you want. You don't want that right now. And it's like, no, that's not necessarily the case. So it's like, I feel like I'm in therapy right now. It's like, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm like, these are conversations that we probably need to have more, because the assumptions that come when it comes to the bedroom sometimes hinder the sexual relationship between the two, and then life also just gets in the way, where you're just so busy and so exhausted that you focus on so many other things and you prioritize other things, that sex gets put on the back burner, or you being this porn star in the bedroom gets put on the back burner. And so sex isn't as exciting or as adventurous as it used to be, or it can be at times.
Do you know what I love though that you said? You're like, and I'm okay with that.
I am okay with that. Because you know what? A question I used to get, or an assumption, was that Brian and I were freaky all the time. Because when you watched us on the show, we were always making out, we were all over each other, and we had very beautiful conversation as well. But our storyline is that we had the hots for each other, and he was this Latino lover, and we just are so sensual and have this amazing sex. And of course, there are certain stereotypes with a Black woman as well. We're this Jezebel, and we're so, freaky as well, and love to have sex all the time. And I think those expectations were on us at the beginning too, where there was a lot of pressure. People would ask us like, "Oh, what kind of sex do you have?" And are you always pleased in the bedroom? And how many times do you have it? And it's like,
who are these people who would ask these questions?
It would be a podcast.
It's okay if it's me.
It would be a magazine. It would be a podcast. It's just like random things. You're like, "Oh, how's your relationship?" Or if we were talking about the fantasy suite or something, they just assumed like, "Oh, I bet you and Brian can't keep your hands off of each other."
Oh, yeah, I understand.
And it's like, I think people would be really disappointed to hear currently about our sex life. And I'm okay with it that it's not living up to the expectations that people think of us. We are long removed from the fantasy suite. Not that what we have and what we do isn't beautiful. It just isn't as wild, I think, as people may be. And frankly, too, because I'm just tired these days. I'm exhausted. And I wish more people would talk about that, right? I hate questions sometimes that are like, how many times do y'all have sex a week? And then you're sitting with a room. I remember I was doing a podcast one time, and they were like, how many times do you have sex a week? And they were asking certain people. It was like a round table. And everyone was like, 3 to 5, 3 to 5. And I just lied. I was just like, whatever number I said, it wasn't true. It wasn't true, whatever I said. But I just remember thinking in that moment, the pressure we feel to live up to people's expectations when it comes to sex. And if you don't have sex this much a week or a month, then your relationship isn't on the same level as that other person's. And I wish we talk about more that, like, no, sometimes it's 0 this week and sometimes it might be 4 or 5, but it's inconsistent because that's just how life is. And I just hate living up to people's sexual expectations.
Especially, I think, going back to that quote that I read, when you provide so much in a relationship and there's so much harmony and joy and entrainment within the relationship, the expectation that this has to be not just the cherry on top, the glue that holds it all together.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's okay if I'm dropping a ball.
Yes. Like, why do we have to? You know, I was listening to Gabrielle Union talk about it, like all the hats that we're supposed to wear as women. And if you drop one thing or if you're not doing something, then you're not whole. You're not fulfilled. You know, I get a lot of questions right now about, like, why don't you and Brian have a child? I can put up a beautiful video of me and Brian or talk about a beautiful experience that we had. And it's like, okay, that's great, but when are we getting a baby? And it's like, first of all, you don't know what fertility issues that I'm going through. You don't even know if maybe my desires for children have changed. Maybe I don't want as many as I might have said before. Maybe I'm prioritizing other things in my life. And whatever those reasons may be, it's okay. But people putting that pressure on me is very, very problematic. And I hate that. They don't do that to men. You know, nobody's writing on Brian's page, when are you going to have children? You know, it does take 2 at the end of the day. But for some reason, it's on me and it's my problem and it's my fault. It's my fault that we're not having children. And I feel like sometimes if I am not, you know, we're not having sex as much as I feel like we should, sometimes I feel like it's my fault. Not that Brian ever places that blame on me. I just feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to. And I feel like as a society, that's because as a society, we hold women to a completely different standard than we do with men.
Is it possible to separate yourself from that standard? To completely free yourself of that standard?
I don't think so. I'm aware of it, which I guess is the first step, and I recognize that there are these double standards when it comes to women, but I'd be lying if I didn't say sometimes I still fight trying to fulfill every single one of them. I still want to be great in all things. And I think in trying to do that or chase that, because that's impossible to do, I exhaust myself in the process. And then other parts of my life suffer. You know, right now, anybody who follows me knows that I'm working all the time. And I'm achieving certain dreams and desires and goals that I've always wanted to have. But on the back end, you know, another dream I wanted to have was to get married and find someone who I connect with and who's a partner in life with me. And I got that. But it's like when I'm giving so much in this bucket, the other one suffers.
Yes.
And I feel like sometimes I'm going through that right now. And that's important to say because people want to talk to me all the time, especially with the book coming out. You and Brian, or how things are going. And things are great with me and Brian, but they could be better. Can I just be honest about that? They could be better. You know, I wish sometimes that I could devote more.
But if I asked the same thing about your career, how are things going in their career, would you say great, but it could be better?
It could be better. It could be better. But it's so much easier to say that than it is to say that my relationship could be better. And we're not struggling. We're not having a problem. Please don't create a headline about that. It's just, we could be better and I want to be better. But sometimes I feel like I have more time to be better in my relationship than I do with my job.
I wonder, though, about that, because I'm kind of just reflecting on, I'm definitely in a period, something happened in my relationship, or maybe 4 months ago, where I had so much pressure on me to be incredible sexually in my relationship, as you can imagine. There's so much pressure on me to be amazing and the best he's ever had every single time and bringing new things to the table and constantly reinventing our sex life. And there was this event that happened between him and I that completely shook up everything. And it was actually really freeing for me because I realized that I actually don't have to be the sex expert in this relationship. We both have a responsibility to try to create the best experience together. But there's a lot that I don't know. I've never really had sex before with somebody who I parented with for a year.
Yeah.
I've never had sex with somebody before when we couldn't make mortgage one month and there was some stress in the house. And then how did that impact our sex life? Like, as much as this is a partner I've had for a long time, we're experiencing new things that are bringing new sides of us out. And even like right now, I'm currently in a season where I'm like, I really don't give a fuck about fucking. I really don't. And there's a couple times, you know what I mean? I'm gonna be honest, maybe in the past month, I've been like, hey, do you want a hand job? Like, that's what I can offer you. And that's okay. So even though I acknowledge that it could be better, I'm also okay with right now being a season where this is what I have, and I'm okay with that.
I'm laughing because I'm like, you're better than me. I can't. I'm like, I'm not even gonna give you a hand job right now. You know what I mean?
I'll offer you a hand job.
Why don't you go watch some porn or something to take care of yourself? I am exhausted. I can't even give that. But I love that you're saying that. Sometimes you're just in a period, or maybe in a little funk where you don't feel like giving yourself sexually, and maybe it's a little selfish, but maybe it's also like, I just don't feel like I can give my best self to you right now.
Yes.
And I don't want to have lazy sex, and I don't want to just do it out of pity, because that can still exist in a marriage as well. It's like, I want to be my best when I give it to you, but like sometimes you're just in a funk. And that's okay to say. And I'm glad you said it too.
Yeah, I think that there's that. I love the balance. I mean, that's a constant balance that we're in this state of self-improvement and acknowledging that we want to work on things, but also being okay with being like, I'm not going to work today.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally feel that completely. I mean, just recently, it's funny. I just came back from a retreat. It's not funny. I came back from a retreat with Brian, and it was all about.
I got to hear about this non-funny retreat.
The retreat was beautiful. It was all about wellness and reconnecting, and you couldn't really have your phones out. It was about mind, body, and spirit, and every hour of the day was planned for you to connect with yourself. We wrote love letters to ourselves and everything. And I went a few days before Brian, and when Brian got there, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so great. We're going to connect. There's no responsibility at this place. I can just completely let myself go and be free with Brian. Because I feel like sometimes that's what holds me back sexually, is I can't turn my mind off. And I am so stressed out, or thinking about what's next, or even maybe thinking about, okay, maybe we have like a good hour here, and then I got to move on to the next thing. So I was like, this is the perfect time to let it all go. Guess what? We never had sex on that retreat. Did we have a beautiful time with one another? Absolutely. But we didn't do it. And it wasn't that I didn't want to. It was just, I don't know, I was just in such a different space where I was focusing on myself and renewing my mind and body and spirit for the new year and what was coming next, that I couldn't take my mind off that to let myself go and my body go and to connect with him, which is terrible, because that was part of the reason that I wanted to do the retreat, was to just fully disconnect so that I could connect with myself and with him. And guess what I ended up doing? Only connecting with myself. So selfish.
Which I think is actually quite interesting, because it's almost like that was the complete release of pressure.
Yeah.
Because you're like, okay, I'm going to go to this thing, and this is where I'm going to make the space and time when we have no work, nothing else. And this is where I'm going to make the space. And you realize when you're there that like that puts the pressure even more on for you to do this thing that you're like, maybe at this present time, what I actually need is not to be needed.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe I need to communicate that to Brian instead of just having that conversation solely with you, because even though this is extremely helpful, because I don't think that, when he probably was expecting the same thing, it didn't happen. And then it's kind of like, well, what's going on? And it's like, well, no, that's not really it or what it was. This is what I was going through in that moment. This is where I am right now. It's nothing personal to you. It's just, I'm in a little bit of a funk. I'm trying to figure things out. It's not a negative thing towards you or our relationship. And I think, I don't know, maybe with men sometimes that's tough. It's like they take it personal, like you don't want to have sex with them, and it's like, no, it's something with me. Or maybe it's not even something with me. I just don't want to do it right now.
I want to close out in talking about the reverse of this, because I experienced this as well, where your partner is going through a period of time where they're like, I just do not have any interest. When I was pregnant, Jared was just like not interested or turned on at all by me. And it was fascinating. Fascinating is the wrong term. Low-key heartbreaking, but we did a really great job. Actually, I'm very proud of us for that. We started out as fuck buddies, which I think is amazing because the whole premise of fuck buddies is we're just here to have great sex.
Yeah. And
so if we're not accomplishing that, there's nothing else for us to even think about. So you had a multi-dimensional relationship where you were thinking about engagement the first day you met somebody. So that takes on a whole different tone of all the different areas that you have to manage.
Yeah.
We didn't have all that. I looked for him for nothing else other than pleasure. And if that was not being provided, then that was the end of the connection. So we had to constantly advocate for our needs and talk about what worked and what didn't work. And so I think the culture of that sexually has led to us having really good, honest conversations where I can say to him, like, I do not want to suck your dick at all for the next month. Don't bring it around. I have no interest. But because we have that open dialogue, it also leads to the person being able to say things to you that's sometimes not that comfortable. So I remember asking him a question. I said, we're just like not having sex and like you never initiate. And so I'm like, is it that you have no sex drive right now or you have no drive to have sex with me? And he was like, I have no drive to have sex with you.
Wow.
And I was like, I think you have to watch the video and play it because it's my face is shown where you're like secretly trying to like, because you don't want to discourage your partner from being honest, but also you're like, it's over. But then I had to also realize that's okay. Like that just, he wasn't turned on by that time and the idea of a child being there. And of course, like the added responsibility of health. And there was other factors involved in it, whatever. But I think that that's okay too, that our partners are not either one in a place to have sex or two, just for whatever reason, don't feel sexually compatible with us.
That's amazing that he was honest enough to say that to you, to your face.
I know, but you were also like, ugh.
What? But I mean, imagine if he would have lied to you.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wouldn't have done either one of you any favors in your relationship. So I think that that's a great lesson. Maybe that's a question I'll ask him.
So if Brian was going through a phase where he's like, this is just not an area of interest of mine. You guys talked about it and he said, I'm gonna be honest with you right now. This is just an area of mine right now that I'm just not interested in working on.
Well, right now I would be relieved because I'd be like, okay, well, good. I'm not there either. And it would take off this pressure because I think about it. I think about how I am not in a place of it all the time. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, what if tonight he's ready to and I am just not feeling it? I add another level of stress to myself. So if he said that and he was feeling the same way I was, I'd be like, whoo, thank goodness. Okay, so I don't even have to think about this tonight.
That's beautiful.
Is it?
Well, I think it's beautiful because we want to be able to tell our partners these things without them taking it personal. And so we have to in turn have that same grace for them.
Yeah. And I am so sexually attracted to Brian. Like, I really am, but it's just, I don't want to do the act of sex right now. That's really what it is. So if he asked me that same question that you asked Jared, I would be like, no, it's not that I'm not sexually attracted to you. I just don't want to have sex right now. I just don't feel like doing that physical activity. And to be fair, I don't really feel like doing any kind of workout right now. And that's the place that I'm in.
Shout out to Rachel Lindsay, and if you feel more convinced than ever that you require more of her voice in your life, she has such a damn good voice. Can we disagree on that? Rachel narrated her own audiobook called Miss Me With That, and using Audible's 30-day free trial, you can listen to Miss Me With That for absolute free. It still counts as support for Rachel. It will still help to boost her sales and make sure that book continues to be a bestseller. So it is the gift that everybody wins and the gift that keeps on giving. So go to audible.com/shanboody, or if you're in the US, text the word shanboody to the number 500-500. Again, that's audible.com/shanboody, or text the word shanboody to phone number 500-500 to get Audible's 30-day free trial, which you will get 1 credit to any audiobook of your choosing that you can listen to and keep forever. And you will also get access to the Audible Plus catalog. Lastly, before I go, I did an entire episode on low sex drive that is not frustrating, called Boss in the Streets and Currently Meh in the Sheets. That's where this interview with Rachel came from. You actually just listened to a longer excerpt of the interview, so you don't need to go and listen to it on the podcast. But what you did miss is a conversation, a very candid conversation between Jared and I about our current sex life. And you also missed an introduction from me where I really broke down what the difference is between HSDD and low sex drive that's not frustrating. So let's talk about it in the comment section below. As always, thank you for sharing your experiences and reflections. It's many people's favorite part about any of my videos. It's definitely mine. So please feel free to share there. And if you have any Rachel love that you want to share, that'd be an amazing place to do it too.
Breaking the back, breaking the bed, had that kill for that. Zig it wet, pull out a stack, flip it and get in the bag. After the party, fuck it, it's your day.